Hello, everybody. Good evening and good afternoon or good morning, depends where you are watching us and when you are watching us. So, thank you for being here with us. We are here with Kardec Radio, and today, now it's time for the Spiritual Light Show. And today is a very important topic because we're going to talk about woman in Kardec's mission. What the role of the woman in Kardec's mission? And for this, we have assured that we got all the strong team to talk about it. Our dear friend Silvia is with us, Vanessa Celonen, Carol with us. So it's wonderful. So Charles, me and you today, just our mission here is just agree, say yes. Okay. Yeah, we are minority here, so you just need to say yes, and that's it. So let them introduce themselves. Let's start with Vanessa and Carol.
Hello, friends. Here we are at Kardec Radio. We are happy to be here in this wonderful program, Spiritual Light, that weekly brings amazing topics, themes, wonderful, deep conversations, so we can dive into this science of the spirits that has been illuminating our lives. And here we have Carol with us, right, Carol?
Hello, friends. We are honored to be here to speak of the role of women in Kardec's mission. What a topic.
Okay, good. Thank you. My dear Silvia, good evening.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. So nice to be with you all, Charles and Vanessa and Carol today, and especially talking about Emily Boudet, which is very, very important. So it would be a nice discussion. It would be nice to be able to honor her because, usually like every woman behind a great man, she sort of fades away a little bit because his light is so bright, but we never know the amount of work that they put behind the work and the career. And I personally feel that spiritism would not exist the way it does if it wasn't for the effort that she made in helping and supporting Kardec during the work. Yeah.
Great. Bonsoir, Charles.
Bonsoir, Stevan. Hello, Vanessa, Caro, and Silvia. Indeed, a very interesting topic. Spiritist body of knowledge is one of the biggest contributors against any type of discrimination, in particular between man and woman. And so it could only lead by example through this fantastic role played by Kardec with the support of his wife.
Yeah. So, as I said, today we're gonna honor Amélie Boudet. So, shortly, guys, you will know who was Amélie Boudet, but she had a special role in Kardec's life, in Kardec's mission. Always stands out as intellectual companion of Kardec. Also accumulates some other functions like secretary, moral support, and when Kardec passed away, she was one of the guardian of the spirit's cause. And as I said, we are here to honor her contribution and reflect on how women's spiritual and organizational roles shaped the early Spiritism and continue to support its propagation today. With like we have today three wonderful women here carrying out with the Spiritism works. And Charles, before we let the girls talk, uh, who was Amélie Boudet and what was her background before meeting Kardec?
Good questions. Good question. Because indeed, in Kardec's biographies, a lot is said, of a lot of things are said about Amélie, but we could not find evidences about all of those. What we know is, of course, her father, her mother. Also, she was not living in Paris. She was living in Château du Loir, which is a city something like 150 kilometers west of Paris, and that she stayed from time to time with her parents in Paris, in Rue de la Planche, which is very close to Rue Vaugirard, Rue de Sèvres, where Kardec, Rivail at that time, was uh, doing his duty of educator, of teacher. And also it is said, for instance, that she wrote some books, but we never could find any of those books. That she was teaching, but also we could not find any evidence of teaching, at least before she married with Rivail, with Hippolyte Rivail. And okay, so what we found is the first letter that was written by Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivail to her, several months before they married. And it's very interesting because in this letter, he's telling, we had the opportunity to meet only once, but this opportunity was enough for me to see that all the good which has been said from you by friends, the common friends between the two families who around, how to say, did such that the marriage could happen, that these persons said about you was not exaggerated, you know. And it is really, how to say, they met, and as from his side or from her side, how to say, it was, they recognized themselves as the one which accepted to perform a mission together in that incarnation at that moment. And it's very interesting. And so this was in August 1831, and in January or no, February 1832, they married. So Amélie went to live in Paris. Rivail was already installed in the Rue de Sèvres, the Lycée Polymatique. And of course, Amélie started from that date performing a very important role, both on the educational period of Rivail, which was between their marriage, 1832, and his start to on the Spiritist body of knowledge, investigation who led to the Spiritist body of knowledge, which started somehow 1855. And really, I mean, all what we could find about them, the letters they exchanged, showed really this, how to say, real deep, profound mutual understanding they had, and mutual support they brought one to the other, in particular in the most difficult periods, both when they had to stop, when Rivail had to stop the educational activities, and also during the codification period, where Kardec faced a lot of opposition, he was say he had to withstand so many disappointments, so many people on which he counted a lot. They just left him like this and so on. And at those moments, really, Amélie was of very fundamental support and assistance to him, to enable him to overcome all these difficulties, or to overcome all these deceptions, and to perform the mission until the end. And you told it, Stevan. She also ensured the continuation of the dissemination of Spiritism, of the Spiritist magazine, and so on after his death.
Great. Beautiful. Thank you for the brief introduction. And now I will open the floor for the ladies here. So let's start. Let's start with Carol and Vanessa. So how Amelie is seen among our spiritist friends in the US?
I don't think people know much. They know that she was the wife, right, Carol?
Absolutely, yes.
But I don't think they know enough. But I can tell that the spiritist robot, Kardec bot, knows about her. If you
Okay, good.
go to Kardec bot,
Uh-huh.
he tells us. It's amazing how precise it is. What Charles was saying matches his whole research. And it's interesting how uh, this spiritist robot, Kardec bot, summarizes that she was one, the support council and editorial assistants, as you said before, Stephen. She took responsibility after Kardec's death, and she has become influential in her own decision to support him. And I think, as a psychologist, sometimes I think people don't ponder enough how relevant it is. And I'm going to give you an example. People sometimes have no ideas how many wars begin or continue or stop thanks to the influence of the wives of people who are in the wars. How many people are influenced by their very partners? I don't want to be unilateral here, but talking about her as Kardec's partner, she was really a partner. According to what we know, she really, one, accepted the call. If at Jesus' time, Mary and Joseph received the call, but Mary was the bearing part of the whole thing, Joseph really went along and accepted it and supported and everything else. When it comes to Kardec, certainly they were both prepared, not only to undergo the venture of the making of Spiritism, but also to understand the depth of it, to really support in the challenges and the hardships, in the context of the time. They were exposing themselves socially. Their lives would change. They would be treated differently by some people in their social circle. So the fact that she not only understood it and helped, but also accepted till the end, till past his death, is not trivial. It's not trivial because we know many people who are so influenced by their spouses that they either stop a cause or they continue a cause according to their partner's support or not. So Amélie Boudet was really the foundational person for Kardec to do what he had to do. He wasn't alone in two realms. In the physical realm, he counted first and foremost on her support. Everybody who is married know that if you are taking, holding a flag and your spouse is not supporting you, it's gonna be hard. But on the contrary, if your spouse is supporting you, everything unfolds to another level, right, Carol?
Right, and she was much ahead of her time because she embraced a science, a new understanding of the world that material science could not understand or support. And we know Kardec was a teacher, an educator, a researcher, and a scientist. And he was faced with much prejudice in that particular field. And she was brave enough to accept the resistance and stand firmly by his side Maybe if it were not for her standing so firmly on his side, he wouldn't have been able to fulfill the mission as perfectly as he did. She was an incredible source of support that we cannot even put into words, the extent of her strength
Mhm.
in giving him the support that he needed, because we know that Kardec certainly didn't find support elsewhere. So we must together conclude that his major source of support was not
Also.
only the spirit mentors and Christ himself, but Amélie Boudet, who did not waver, so much so that she continued the work of the Spiritist magazine past his transition to the spiritual realm.
Wonderful, wonderful to see how we have a vision about Amelie among our friends in the US. Now let's go to our friends in the UK. Dear Silvia, how's Amelie Roder?
Well, I suppose it's like everywhere else. We all know about Emily, we know the role that she played. But, sometimes we forget. So that's why it's so special to have a program like this, talking exclusively about her. Because I think a point that Charles made, how they met and they knew each other, and um, I think they had what we call a marriage was a mission. So the marriage was a mission. They came to do the work together because she was always, like Vanessa and Carol also and Charles pointed out, she was a support to him. Um, they already in their lives, they were concerned about teaching children with less, that were as able to pay. I mean, in those days, a very difficult education for children who were poor, came from families who could not afford it. So they already, even before they started on Spiritism, they already had this mission of educating children, which is an incredible, incredible thing to do, because that's the only thing that we can really give to children is education, is learning, so they can have a clear idea how to decide their lives. So they were already working something extremely important, and changing the lives of many, many children. And she was all the time together with him. And then, of course, when they started the phenomenon of the tables and how he didn't really care much about, but people were talking about it, and he started going to places and finding out about the thinking tables, the moving tables, and how things changed. And she was always going with him. And I think nowadays um we think, oh, yes, she went with him. But the religion in those days was a lot stronger. People had a lot more connections with their church. Most of the people went to the same church. They had a society around them, and they were looking for something completely different. And she felt and she saw the need to go and support him in trying to find out and doing all the research. And we know that she worked as his secretary. She took care of the correspondence, and she helped him immensely. She was his assistant, his secretary, his personal assistant, and I think the best friend that he ever had. I'm sure they had a level of friendship and respect and care for each other to be able to do that. So I think she participated. Of course, he came with that mission to codify the Spiritist doctrine. Is undeniable. We will never be able to pay the sacrifice that Kardec did to get to the codified the doctrine for us and all the teachings of Spiritism. But she came specifically to support him, to be with him, and to, support him financially, psychologically, to be there and go to the she used to go with him to to all the meetings, the sessions, and finding out about the spirits and the tables that were talking. So she was always with him all the way, and supporting him. So we have to be extremely grateful to her as well, because both of them had a life of extreme sacrifice that we have no idea, that because of the work they both did. And so it's very special to be able to talk about her and really see the role that she played and how she helped us in understanding about Spiritism, for her sacrifice. And most especially after the death of Kardec, she continued the work. She didn't give up. She didn't go home and become a sad widow. No, she went out into the world and she was really continued the work that he did until her death, and I'm sure that and I'm sure somewhere there she's still working to help us. So we can only learn from her and try to dedicate ourselves as well to the service of Spiritism. So I think it's wonderful to be able to talk about her specifically.
Great. Thank you, my dear.
Yeah.
And now let's ask to Vanessa and Carol. Why is recognizing women such as Amélie important for spiritist culture today?
Okay, why is it? I'm just gonna give like one facet of it all. When we talk about, because she was in this marriage, missionary marriage, as Silvia mentioned to us, she understood the mission, she accepted it, she did her share in this mission, and really sacrificed what? Sacrifice everything for this. What do we see nowadays? Especially when she's 9 years older than Kardec. So think about this. At their time, to be 60, almost 70 years old was very old. Very old. Nowadays, 60 and 70 are still quite youthful, able to do 10,000 things. But at Kardec's time, their age range was of those like very senior years. And to imagine that in those most, and I say quote unquote, fragile years, they decided to dedicate all of their material, spiritual effort to sponsor and support an unknown cause in the world is extraordinary. It's not trivial. Again, time and again, it's not trivial. It's very, very deep. And what do we see nowadays? When people get a little older, they think of their retirement, they think of themselves, thinking, oh, how are we going to really live in these last years of our lives? We need to secure our lives. And what did they do? They both took the risk. They took the risk and they did it together. Would any other couple do this? Most likely not. Because many people, when they get to those years, they think of themselves alone. And if one of the partners says, I want to dedicate myself to the benefit of others, some of them are going to be by themselves, because the other one is going to say, oh no, I worked all my life, I'm now going to think of myself. Those aspects of life need to be taken in consideration, knowing that Amélie was quite instrumental. Nowadays, in the Spiritist movement, what do we see? Majority of Spiritists are women in the world. They are. In every Spiritist center you go, majority of Spiritists are women, especially those who work. So Charles and Stevan they are the minority, even in the Spiritist movement, even though many men take the stage as speakers. In the daily life of Spiritist centers, we have women. The making of Spiritism to date is thanks to the effort of women. It's evident throughout the world, in Brazil, out of Brazil, in the US, everywhere we go. Right, Carol?
Absolutely right. And they went above and beyond, as Vanessa is saying, thanks to the support of Amélie Boudet, of their partnership, that the first Spiritist center in the world was formed. Without it, without that seed, we wouldn't be here. None of us would be here. Our lives would not have been transformed. So all of us are standing on Amélie Boudet's and Kardec's shoulders with much gratitude. And those of us who live abroad outside of Brazil, where Spiritism is somewhat predominant, we know how hard it is to open a Spiritist center, to sustain it, and to keep persevering in the works, especially when there's nothing there, which was the case of Amélie Boudet and Kardec, even more so than in our case, because they opened the first Spiritist center in the world. So the lighthouse that they created will sustain us to immortality, and we owe everything to this partnership that was all about connecting to the general good and to the higher purposes of life. And each of us are called to make the same decision, having Amélie Boudet and Kardec as inspiration for us.
Very nice.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Silvia, want to add something?
No, I was agreeing and absolutely certain, because I think there is another point as well, because when we think about Spiritism and the ideas, it's almost like, in France had already for quite some time, they had the idea of the Illuminists and, the great philosophers who began to change the world view of man and its role in the world, as a center. Was a complete change, and this movement started in France. That's why Paris is called the City of Lights. Many people think that's something else, but so the ideas are already coming through, to the many philosophers saying, but and the change. I mean, can't deny also that the revolution made a big change of political regimes and everything. And Spiritism, in a way, came to the point in which all those ideas converge, because I think, I don't know, I think the ideas of Spiritism and what it means a relationship of man and God and our lives going beyond the physical body and all that, it's such an idea of transformation of the whole way that humanity used to think about itself. It is a completely different, the idea that you are the architect of your life. You are the ones who create your future. And the whole thing about the religious idea before, that you would be condemned to eternal hell and all that kind of thing. And it was one of the most transformative thoughts in the history of humanity. And the two of them were there, Kardec and Amélie. And also, I think the support that they had for each other, because I think the respect, the love, and the work they were doing together, because, once they embarked on that on spreading and learning about these new ideas that were coming, there were lots of enemies. I mean, Kardec was punished terribly. He was persecuted. He was, all the friends, most of his friends, and the whole support that you have a society, they lost. And I think the being together, it was what actually, was it, they were able to sustain each other um, for all the attacks that came towards them, and they were true to the mission that they took. I mean, I have such an incredible admiration for the both of them. I feel emotional about it even, because I think, even though we talk about it, we read about it, and in a certain level, we know, but deep down, we have no idea of the sacrifice of those two beings, and everything that we have, and not only now. I mean, it's like Carol was saying, this is for eternity. We are only
Mhm,
now,
mhm,
science, material science is only now beginning to get to the point that the spirit's already teaching us nearly 200 years ago. So I think is the death of that we have towards them. It's, it's immense. And I think the only way to honor it is to do the work ourselves in a small way. It doesn't matter. It's not a small spiritual center with 10 people, but the fact that we already continue the work that they start, I think, is the only way that we have to honor the sacrifice that they both made. Sorry.
yeah.
It's good.
And to think how intelligent they were, because it really takes another level of intelligence for you to break down on the importance of this work. And both were on the same page in that regard. How intelligent they were to choose the career as educators, whereas people were choosing other things. They were idealists, and they were also working at a level that they could see further down, right? Kardec's insight to go from researching on spiritual phenomena, mediumistic phenomena, turning table phenomena, and go and bridge it up to the moral consequences, to understanding that there is a science of the spirits and a melibode to embrace it. If nowadays some people have a hard time after all the evidence, because we have all the books, we have the evidence, we have 10,000 mediums, we have mediums like Chico Xavier, so many around the world, and yet there are
Mhm,
people who refuse to even give in. For them, the little that he saw, that she saw, that he understood, she understood, was enough for them to brave it into being the flag holders of a whole new life on earth for all of us. Our lives changed thanks to their courage,
Sure.
right?
yeah, correct.
I think as well the balance between the two of them, because Kardec was very intellectual, very into that part, but she brought to him because she was an artist, wasn't she? She was a painter and everything. So how they complemented each other, I think she brought some softness to his very dry intellect. I think that's why everything is so beautiful and poetic, when we read the spirit's book and everything. I think there's a measure there. They were perfect.
Yeah. Let's change a little bit the gears here. Charles, we're talking about Amelie, but we had some other important women, like, for example, the Fox sisters in the US, like, for example, the mediums who helped Kardec with the messages. And I'm who are we missing? Who we can say helped with Kardec's mission in spreading the Spiritism?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Stevan. May I just complement quickly what Vanessa and Silvia said?
Sure, yeah, of course.
Vanessa was saying they took risks, and really they took in the real meaning of the word, because in order to finance the Spiritist magazine, the publishing of the book, and so on, they took a loan on their own pockets, on their own risk, in order to finance all what had to be financed in order to make this codification real, without almost any external help, you know. So when Vanessa, you told they took risk in the true sense of the word. And some other small compliment about Amélie and Rivai. A lot of people say no, because it was a marriage. She was 9 years older than him, and they did not have natural children because maybe they selected abstinence or whatever. Mm. When you read some letters, really they tried to have a child, children, but at that time with 35 years or 36 or 37, it was a little bit complicated, more complicated than today. And also, they how to say, they educated a child, which is the so-called little Louise, which lived with them something like 6 or 7 years. But unfortunately, she died very young, when she was around 10 years. It was not a full adoption, because the laws of that period did not allow them to have a formal adoption of the child. Nevertheless, we have evidences that they educated a little girl called Louise, which went with Amélie to the how to say, house of her parents during the holidays and so on. So that was also part of what they did, which was not so well known up to now. And now to answer to your question, of course, the Sister Fox, this is how everything restarted, if I can say so, this invasion of spiritist or psychic phenomenons that started in 1858, and that made such that it spread around the world, and that Kardec got interested in it and made his scientific observations and all this outstanding work he did with the codification of the Spiritist body of knowledge. But of course, he could not have done it without mediums. You cannot ask. He was not medium himself. Amélie also was not medium, but she had a kind of intuition, because several times she said, be careful with this one or with that one. You may be, you may have some deceptions and so on. And a lot of times we have also some evidences. She had the right feeling, and Kardec was more, how to say, trusting, without attention enough, and this avoided him a lot of also difficulties in his mission. But of course, among the mediums, there were several ladies. So the Sister Baudin, they were not with 15 or 14 years that it has been written in the biographies. They had 21, 22 years, and they married a couple of months only after the publication of the Spirits book. But of course, most of the messages, a lot of them have been got by these two ladies. And there was a third lady also, so-called Céline Jaffé. Her true name was Céline Becquet, who made, in particular sessions, she was doing for free, because she got some money for being somnambulist, but she did it for free for Kardec. I would say Rivai, because Kardec came only 18th of April 1857 for a full revision So she intermediated with spirits, reading the book and making all the final touch-up and corrections before publishing. So these three ladies had really also a key role in the codification. But not only, there were a lot of other ladies medium, Madame Costel or Madame Casmajour and many others, who Madame Delanne also, the mother of Gabriel Delanne, who had an active role in the codification. And okay, we told already about Amélie Boudet. You told also about there are some other women, like for instance in Spain, Amalia Domingo Soler, and in France there was another lady who had also a very important role called Rufina Noguerat, called Bonne Maman in French, good mother, and who performed a very important role also in the dissemination of the Spiritism in the second half of the 19th century. And this is also, how to say, encouraged by Spiritist body of knowledge itself, because as I told at the beginning, the Spiritist body of knowledge was one of the biggest contributors to the feminist cause, to stop with this discrimination between men and women. You know, my mother, she had only the right to vote after WW2. So you see, and the time it took until there was coming closer to a better equality between men and women. And the Spiritist body of knowledge is helping a lot in this, because it's explaining that there are the same spirits can incarnate male or female. So on the point of view of the spiritualist point of view, there is absolutely no reason for making any discrimination between men and women. And this was, of course, also key at the beginning. You had a lot of feminists, women militating in the feminist movement, including, for instance, the spouse of Camille Flammarion himself, who was a pacifist and feminist woman. She had a movement to stop the wars, but through the action of the women. Very interesting. And all this was motivated by the Spiritist body of knowledge. So indeed, there were a lot of women, and I don't tell about Brazil. You had Yvonne Pereira, many others, women who also played a very important role in the dissemination of Spiritism. And this is without talking about all this assistential work, all this charity being done, motivated by Spiritism, like Carita, for instance, who appears also in the Spiritist codification.
Perfect. I also want to say good evening to Rialia Home. She loves the topic. Also, our friend Hipólito Rebolo is with us. Lou VM. Lou said Spiritism was like their baby. They both, so courageous, brought it to the world, the light on earth. Wonderful. Thank you for your comments, my friends. So, Silvia, you want to add something here?
No, not particularly. No. Just going women, as Vanessa was saying, Charles as well, there are many women working, and it's true, here in England at least, and I'm sure everywhere, quite a lot of the working people are women, which is fine. I don't think there is any difference. And I think the point that Charles made is very important, because we have this tendency, I think, put the women against men, and in Spiritism, we have the same role, we walk together. I think where one is weak, the other one completes. And I think there is no need to fight. I personally was born in a family of very strong women, very strong women, not because they decided to be strong, but because life forced them to be. So And, quite a few people in my family were spiritists or around spiritism. So it's being part of understanding this as well, that spirituality, when well understood, especially spiritism, will make you to be who you really truly are. You don't hide behind anything. Life calls you to do something and you go and do it. And it's very, very special. And of course, when we have a spirit like Joana de Angelis, who is a really, really incredible example for women everywhere. I think we are very, very lucky to have so many examples. And Amélie is one of the greatest because she lived a life here. She suffered the same thing that we do suffer, the difficulties, the people being against you and all that kind of thing. So she's really a light for all of us. And it's
Indeed.
very important this point that we are not different. We just have different roles, but we are, we have the same right, isn't it?
Yes, yes, correct, correct. And I need to say it because the role our friend Janet Duncan did in the UK. So with the translations of the book, spreading Spiritism in the UK, so it's important. And I don't know if she's able to watch us or listen us, but I want to say thank you for all what have she done to the Spiritism movement in the UK and the world. So she
Exactly,
she
yeah.
kick off the Spiritism in English, isn't it, Vanessa?
Man, if there is someone we have to be thankful for, her bravery, her uh, beautiful stubbornness in staying strong. She could have surrendered to the Portuguese because she speaks Portuguese, but she
Oh
didn't,
yeah, yeah.
right? And then she said, no, we need to do this, and we need to do this, and we need to do this, and say, thank you, Janet, a million times, because this weekend I was traveling for spiritist purposes, and there are wonderful groups, wonderful friends. But how many of them are telling me, oh, but it's so hard to do it in English because Brazilians, and I say, guys, it's as simple as this. You're in the US, you speak in English. That's how it is. It doesn't say more than this, But Janet had that clear understanding that in spite of her knowing Portuguese, being friends with Brazilians, she had to keep that light on. The torch was on. And we are forever grateful to her because it's the language through which the world's going to get to know Spiritism. Well, whether we like it or not, that's the nature of things. In material sciences, we speak in English. In the spiritual sciences, we do too. And, for me, I, 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 there's one woman especially. I know she spoke in Spanish, but I owe a great deal to her, Amália Domingo Soler. I admire her life, her hardships, her inspiration, her books are so profound. And I recommend to everybody her book, especially the book that talks about 15 cases of past lives that Luis Rivas was able to compile from another book that has many more cases, Hechos que Prueban, and gives us a clear understanding of even her work in the way this book is written. Um, and we owe a great deal to her, a great deal to her. But I know we are almost done. I want to read a short poem
Sure.
tribute to Amélie Boudet. And I tell you, I think Sylvia's going to love it because the subtitle is Faithful Heart of Spiritism. Look at that.
Yeah.
It's
But
exactly.
one thing that is interesting, we had a play. We had a play here. When you used to have a theater group,
Yeah.
We had a play about Kardec, and I actually was the one who played Amélie, which was really
Oh,
interesting.
oh my
Such a
gosh.
connection, yeah.
Wow.
And Janet, I mean, I started studying with Janet in her little room, you know.
Yeah.
So I began studying with Janet as well. So there's a big connections there
Do
for
you have
people
a
who
video
are.
of the play?
Yeah, I think we do. Yes, I'll try to find out, send it to you. We,
It would
I'm
be
not
nice
sure
to
if we
to
do have, but I'll try to find out anyway.
it would
Yeah,
be
it
nice
was
to
something we were
transmit
doing.
at
Yeah,
Cardiac Radio so people can watch it.
yeah. I'll try to
Yeah.
find out if you still have anything, copies of that. It
Nice.
was a
What?
long time ago, though. So
Yeah.
anyway, so oh,
Nice. Yeah. So the arts, as Silvia said, faithful heart of Spiritism in the quiet light of the 19th century France, where shadows of doubt and reason danced, a soul stood firm, gentle yet grand, a Malibu de Spiritism's unseen hand, not by sermons nor loud acclaim, but through the quiet strength of flame. You kindled hope where few could see, and bore the task. Bore the task with dignity. Beside Kardec, in work and will, you shaped the cause with steadfast skill. And when his voice to silence passed, you held the torch firm to the last. No title sought, no glory claimed, yet by your life the truth was framed. A teacher, a thinker, so refined, a mother to the light signed. Now, in the realms of clearer day, your spirit walks the brighter way. But here on earth, your name shall be a symbol of fidelity. Wolf Wolf by Lupi. Come here, Lupi. Yeah.
Great.
And I would like to express my eternal gratitude to Amélie Boudet and to Kardec because they could have withheld all the teachings
Yeah.
that they have received for themselves. It would have been much easier for them because they wouldn't have had to face any discrimination, any pushback from society in any way, shape, or form. They could have taken the shortcut. Had them taken the shortcut, we wouldn't have the light that shall illuminate our lives forever. So I would really like to express our eternal gratitude to them and to Amalia Domingos Soler, who was also very courageous. And her cases of 15 cases of past lives. Some of them have been published in the Spiritus magazine, which
Yeah.
was started by Kardec and continued by Amélie Boudet. And the last thing I would like to say is that Kardec and her were so courageous, as we all have said, because they lived a life that showed that women had a worthy place in society and that women deserved respect more than words. They lived it, and their example shall be imprinted in our hearts forever.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Also, our friend Daisy Garland is with us. So, team US, it is with us. So, great. Okay, we do have 5 minutes. Let's wrap up. Charles.
Yeah, I mean, what we can see from all what we have listened today is that there is hardly a big man without a big woman behind
Mhm.
him. And that is exactly the role Amélie played, helping him to perform his mission. So it was a joint mission for him and her, both together. And it's really what comes out of all these documents that appeared recently, all these letters they exchanged when was one or she or he were traveling and the other was taking care about all what was necessary at home or in the library and wherever. And it is really, I mean, all these letters is really are really showing how open, transparent, full of trust and love and confidence was their relationship. And I think really without this, Kardec would have much harder time to perform his mission and maybe would not have performed it in the extent he could, thanks to her help.
Yeah. And there's a quote saying, behind a great man, I always have a great woman. I would say this is wrong. Beside a great man, we always have a great woman.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know? Silvia.
Yes. Well, I think personally, just to bring to a close this wonderful talk, I remember always when I think of Emily, I always think about that story, and we have a painting that was done here in London by one of our friends, actually, who paint Kardec and Emily, bringing the letter, the story of the letter of someone who had wanted to commit suicide, and he was in this bridge. And as he put his hand, he felt a book, and he thought it was curious. What book is that in the bridge? So he took the book, and he was the spirit's book, and so he started reading it, and then he decided that he wasn't going to die anymore after reading the spirit's book. And he worked with books, doing them properly. So he worked on this book with gold leaves and all sorts of things, and he sent a letter to Kardec with the book that he had redone beautifully, and said, "Oh, this book saved my life, and I hope it, saves someone's life as well." And there is this beautiful painting that she brought the book and the letter to Kardec, and they're both together. And I always found that so wonderful that she was the one who she opened all the correspondence and this connection, because the person said, I think he put up another book in the bridge, and he said, "This book saved my life, and I hope it saved yours as well." And this is such an important thing. That was a transformation of that person's life and all of our lives, because once we read about Spiritism, we study it, and it comes straight into your heart, and your life never, ever is the same again. Once when you bring into your heart, into your knowledge, into your logic, it never goes, you're never the same person. We are transformed, and it's such a blessing that we had Amélie sustaining, helping in that relationship, as everyone said, love and respect for each other that was so deep and profound, and we are the ones who benefited from that. It's so, let's go out there and continue the work that they started.
Okay. Ladies, Vanessa and Carol.
As Silvia said, let's keep going and never stop, because right now I keep asking myself, where are they? I only remember once that the spirit showed me like a desk far away from this earthly plane, but looking down on us very gently and kindly. Kardec, and certainly Amélie Boudin, and I say the desk because they keep working with the letters and the arts as educators of our immortal souls. But to imagine that the sacrifices they made here, the decision that they took, as Carol said, the decision to share what they've seen without fear, with much courage, has been changing lives daily. Daily, I see people transforming their lives thanks to Spiritism and thanks to this couple, and thanks especially to Amelie for being the foundation through which Kardec was able to stand tall and really do the work that he had to do himself. Not that she didn't, but her work also was a most instrumental one. All we need to do is to keep on going, be courageous, and think it's gonna pay off in the immortal life. It's gonna pay off, and certainly pays off for them too.
Sharing Spiritism is the greatest way to allow their light to keep on shining. So let us keep on sharing, friends. And speaking of sharing, I would like to share something I learned with Janet Duncan, whose presence is so dear to all of our hearts. There's one phrase she told me that I will never forget, and I must say it in honor of her. Reincarnation is not a vacation.
Oh, yeah, that was one of her things that she used to say. We're not here on vacation. We're here to work. Yeah, I remember. She used to say that
We said
phrase.
it at
Yeah.
Kardec Radio. There is an
Yes.
interview with her. The title of the interview is Reincarnation is Not a Vacation. So it's
Yeah.
immortalized. It's there at Kardec Radio.
It's her trademark, and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Amélie Boudet and Kardec understood this together. So let us take their strength and courage with us as
Yeah.
we spread Spiritism together as well.
Yeah. And I thank you, girls. I want to finalize with one of the, I think is one of the, for me especially, it is one of the beautiful stories I have heard about the Spiritism. Charles, I need your help because I never, I always mistaken. I think it was with Delan. When Delan was very young, he saved a lot of money to go to Paris because he wants to meet Kardec. And despite of all the efforts, all the problems he had, he made it. But when he made it, he saw Kardec in a garden with Amelie. Amelie was in a swing, Charles. Yeah, Amelie was in a
Yeah.
swing, and Dylan saw that image, and he just turned back because he didn't want to disturb that moment. In both were in peace.
Stevan, it was not Gabriel Dolan, it was Léon Denis.
Denis,
Huh?
okay. I always make a mistake between Delan and
Gabriel
Denis.
Dolan was a child. He was born 1857, so he was as a child in Kardec's and Amelie's house, sitting on the knees of Kardec and of Amelie and whatever. I mean, Gabriel was very young at that time. Huh? And the story you are telling is of Léon Denis. Léon Denis really met Kardec 3 times. Once it was when Kardec was doing a lectures in Tours, where this episode happened. He was Léon Denis came to visit Kardec the day after his speech, and he saw him on a chair taking some cherries and handing them over to Amélie. And really, they had a garden in the Villa Ségur in Paris, which was not urbanized as today. It was a lot of green spaces and gardening and so on. And Amélie was taking care about the grapes for her husband. And there are a lot of stories like this, very nice stories. And Léon Denis really traveled also to Paris in order to meet Kardec in the Passage Sainte-Anne. So that episode was of Kardec. But Gabriel Delan made a wonderful speech at the funeral of Amélie. And this is
Yes.
really worth, Vanessa, if you want to disseminate it, I can send you this speech in French, because it's really worth, I think, to disseminate also in English language.
Yes, can you send it to me as well?
Sure.
Please. Yes, you could can try to
Thank you,
translate
Charles.
into English. Yeah.
Me
Thank you.
too. I need it for the magazine, please.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to our announcements. And next week we have Munir with us. The topic of next week it is the gospel according to Spiritism, a moral code for the 21st century. 9 p.m. London time. We'll be here. So every Saturday, 10:30, we do have the Mediums book study, online studies with Charles, Munir, and Guilherme. Keep reading Kardec, the Spiritist magazine. Our friends in the US do a wonderful job trying to keep this magazine keeping going with beautiful articles, inspiring articles. And if you have any questions about any spirit center in the UK, you can go to BUS website, and you do have here in Ireland, we do have the Irish Spiritist Federation with meetings every Sunday. So for addresses, and also we do have groups in Cork, we have groups in Galway, and in France, the movement, the Francophone movement, always take care of the spread of the Spiritism in France. And keep listening us on Kardec Radio. Because of the Kardec Radio, we are here. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. That's it from us today. I wish to say good evening, good night, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Lupi. Thank you, Silvia.
Thank you.
Merci, Charles. Thank you,
Thank you.
Daisy.
God
Thank
bless.
you, UVM. Thank you, Hipólito. Thank you, Realia. So it's wonderful to have all of you here sharing the knowledge and giving us more insights about the Spiritism. Okay?
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Have a night.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Lovely
Bye.
to see you all. Thank you. God bless you. Bye. Take care of yourselves out there.